Hey YouTubers, welcome back to John's Garage. Today we've got a Lexus IS350 in for an oil change. So let's take a look at what we need to do this oil change. So I've laid out everything here that we're going to need for our oil change. Let's take a look at everything we have here. So you need some kind of a drain pan to catch the oil. Doesn't have to be fancy like this, anything will do. Then you're going to need a oil filter wrench, and this is specific to this car. You get these off Amazon, eBay. I got this one off eBay. It's a HC-64.5-14 oil filter wrench, and it says it fits IS350. And then we need an oil filter. I buy these by the case from Toyota, and this is just the Element 04152-YZZA3, and you can get a discount if you buy a case load of these. And when you buy these, inside is a oil filter element and a rubber O-ring. It's really important that it contains this O-ring because that wears out, gets dried out, could break when you're trying to change it. So make sure your element contains one of those in the box. Then you're going to need some disposable vinyl gloves. Get these at Walmart, one size fits all. Your hands are going to get oily. Also at the Toyota dealer, you want to get some of these oil drain washers. You can buy them one at a time, but I buy a bag full of them. Let's see, these are 90430-12028. Then you're going to need a socket wrench, and you're going to need two sockets, a 10 and a 14. The 10 is just to take off the plastic cover, 14 is for the drain plug. You're going to need a funnel when you fill the oil up. You're going to need some ramps to drive your car up on, and these work really good for sports cars that the front bumper's pretty low on. If your car's even lower, maybe you lowered it, you might need two little pieces of 2x4 to stick in front of the ramp to drive your car up 1.5 inches before you hit the ramp. Some wheel chocks, these are just some 4x4s that are cut in half. And then oil, you're going to need 6.6 quarts. So I got these two cases at Costco. And mobile one is expensive enough, so find a place where you can get some money, some savings on it, and some paper towels to wipe up the mess. So that's everything we need to get started. So let's go. Okay, so it's a rear-wheel drive car, so it tends to push the ramps a little bit, so I was very careful going up the ramps. Now let's chalk the back wheels. I like to put one in the front, one in the back. Realistically, it can only go backwards, but I like to chalk this way. Okay, let's check the stability of our ramps. This one is in good. This one's in good. Okay, let's get the hood open. Pull the latch from inside. There's just by the badge here, there's a release. Your fingers lift up, comes up. So before we go under the car, let's go ahead and remove the oil fill cap. Set that aside. And oil dipstick, just pull it up a little bit, get some air going in there. It'll make the oil drain better. The engine is not hot. I did run the engine for a few minutes while putting it up on the ramps. You want the oil to circulate and the oil to be warm, but you don't want the engine to be so hot you burn your fingers on the oil pan or you burn your hands when the oil comes out and gets on your gloves. You don't want to burn yourself. So now let's get under the car with the drain equipment. Okay, so let's go under the car and find the drain plug. You don't need a light, but I brought one for photography purposes to help you see where this is at that we're going. So, the oil pan is right here in the center between the two wheels. If you just follow the suspension right here, you'll see the oil drain. This is the oil drain pan. The oil pan, and this is the drain plug on this side. So let's position our catch tray underneath that, and let's get our 14 millimeter set it the right direction for loosening, lefty-loosey. Okay, there it goes. And I brought paper towels under here. So I've got the drain bolt, and the washer is still stuck to the pan, so we'll get that off in a minute. Okay, while the oil's draining, I just heard the O-ring fall off in the pan. Here it is. So just a flat washer, and we're going to replace that with a new one, so I'm just going to chuck this. So while the oil continues to drain out, we're going to slide up towards the front bumper and get to the filter. So here's the front bumper, and just about a foot behind it there is a square cover held in with 3 bolts, and they are 10 millimeter, or you could use a Phillips screwdriver, but I'm going to go ahead and use a 10 millimeter to take those out. So the camera here. Okay, so these bolts are not in super tight. They're actually screws. They are pointed at one end, so there's 3 of them, 2 in the front and then 1 in the back. So there is our cover that we have taken off. And then if we look up there, we'll see where the oil filter is. So we're going to stick a wrench, our special wrench that we got. We're going to stick that on here, and there's two tabs that are going to align with that wrench, and we're going to unscrew that about maybe 4 turns with the wrench, and we can do the rest by hand. So let's get the wrench on it. Okay, so let's take our wrench and stick it on the filter housing. It only goes one way. If you put it on, it doesn't fit one way. Try it the other way. There we go. Got to align those tabs. And then we get our socket wrench, just the wrench itself. There's no socket on here, so there's a square end to this. So get your wrench on there. And remember, lefty-loosey, counterclockwise. So just turn this about 4 full turns until you can turn it by hand. And oil is going to start leaking out at some point, so you want to have a catch pan ready. If you got a second one, that's great. If not, now is the time to put your washer and bolt back in the oil pan. I'm going to do that later. For filming, I'm going to get a second pan here and stick it under to catch any oil that leaks as I'm unscrewing this. There are a lot of threads on this thing. Okay, it's getting pretty loose now, so I'm going to take off my wrench. I'm going to keep the... I'll take off the special wrench too, and I can turn this by hand. Now, I'm going to get a paper towel ready because oil is going to leak. See, oil's starting to leak out there. We're just going to let that leak for a little bit so I don't get oil on the camera lens. Okay. Even though it's a Lexus, you can see it says Toyota on the filter housing. Let's see if I can get this out without making too big of a mess. Okay, there we go. And there is the filter element inside. So I'm just going to stand this up in the oil pan, let it drip out a little bit. And that's what it looks like up inside where the oil lives. Okay, so now we're going to get our new filter element and our O-ring. And we're going to get our new washer for our drain bolt. So put that on there and get it ready. And open this package up here. So put our O-ring. Okay, so let's take the dirty element out. It just fits over that. This part gets thrown away. It's a little more work than the spin-on filters because they're self-contained. They've got the rubber washer and everything that all gets thrown away. So I guess environmentally this is less impactful as far as landfill, but it's a little bit more work. So the rubber O-ring, you're going to want a little flat screwdriver or something. I didn't include that at the beginning of the video, but you want to just lift that up and roll it off of there. And that goes in the garbage too. We're going to let that filter drain out as much as possible, get all the oil we can out of it. The new O-ring, we'll get just a little bit of oil to lubricate it so it doesn't pinch on anything. And you want to roll that over and just roll it on, get it into that slot. Make sure it's in the proper slot, okay? Not on the threads, but in that groove that's made for the rubber O-ring. Okay, can you see that? Not down here, but in the slot. Not on the threads, not down here, in that slot. Get that closer so you can see it. Okay, right there. Okay, so let's clean this off. It's all cleaned off so it's not going to drip all over the place when we're putting it back in. The new cartridge is the same on both directions. It doesn't matter. Just line it up on there. Push it on there till it clicks. There's a, you can see that how there's a spring in there. It's a pressure relief. So that is ready to go back on the car. Okay, so we're back onto the car now. And we've got our filter. So I'm going to hold the camera while I do this. So you just want to line it up. Go slowly by hand to make sure your threads line up. Okay. And we did put a little bit of oil on that rubber washer so it doesn't bind and tear on us. So we're going to turn that as much as we can by hand. And that is just by hand. It dead ended there, so we'll get our wrench on there and just snug it up. Okay, so let's get our cap wrench. Get our cap wrench and get our socket. Turn it the other direction because it's going to be tightening it now. Righty-tighty. Okay, so we got that the other direction. Yeah, it doesn't go any further. It's tight. So you can't over tighten these things. When it's all the way there, it's all the way there. It's not going to move anymore. Oops. Sorry about the focus there. So let's take off our wrench. I'm going to leave the cover off for now, the plastic cover, because after we get oil in it, we're going to start the engine, make sure there's no leaks. So I'm going to leave that cover off for the moment, and we're going to move back to the oil drain. That's just a very tiny drip now. Looks like all the dirty oil is out. So let's get our drain bolt and new washer and slide back there. Okay, so we've got our new washer on our drain bolt, and we're going to put that in by hand. Line up the threads. Just turn it by hand. You never want to cross thread it. You'll be replacing your whole pan if you do that. Get our 14mm wrench, our socket, just righty-tighty. And you don't need a dying strain on this because that aluminum washer will expand as it gets warm, and that'll make the seal. So just give it, a good turn on there, but don't use a big torque wrench and over torque it and damage it. So just snug it up real good. I'll look up the specs and put them in the comment section. Tell you what the torque spec is on that to give you an idea, and then just clean up any oil on there with a paper towel. Make it nice and clean. Okay, so now we're ready to go up top and put some clean oil in the engine. Okay, so now we're ready to put oil in the car, and with a filter change it needs 6.6 quarts. So 1 quart is 946 milliliters. So we take the 946 times 0.6, it's 567 milliliters. So we want a total of 6.6 with our filter change. So we need one of these cans to have 567. So I took a spare empty one that never had anything in it except Mobil 1 5W30. Don't ever use a dirty one or mix anything. So this only had clean new oil, same grade. So I poured some of this out and I got it down. If you put it on a level surface, 567 would be right about there. This thing has measurements. When it's full, it's 946. So on a level surface, that line right there filled it up to 567. So we're ready to start putting oil in the car. So we got our funnel here. 6.6 quarts. Just start pouring in. Drip out as much as you can, don't waste anything. I like to use synthetic Mobil 1 in this engine because it is a high performance engine. You can push this thing. It's got 306 horsepower in a very light car. I think it does 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, something like that. It's a quick little car, and with these summer only Michelin Super Sport tires, this thing really corners. So to take care of this engine, make it last a long time, I'm spending the extra money on Mobil 1 5W30 fully synthetic oil. You can go longer between oil changes with a synthetic oil, but I don't like to. I still like to keep my oil changes ideally 3,000 miles, but you can go 5,000. I always change it sooner than the manufacturer's recommended intervals because I don't want to have sludge buildup or anything like that on the engine. It's a small price to pay to make your car last a really long time. So there is 6.6 quarts of new 5W30 in this engine. And all those empties are going to get recycled in the plastic recycling. The used oil will go down to AutoZone and get recycled. They don't recycle filters at my AutoZone, so we're going to let it drip out as much as we can in the pan and then just throw that away with the rubber O-ring. And the cardboard box it came in is going to be recycled as well, so very little going in the landfill. Let's check the dipstick here. You always want to wipe it off with a clean, ideally lint-free towel. You don't want to get lint in your engine. Push that dipstick all the way down, pull it back out, and you want to be between the two dots. On a new oil change, you're going to be just a little over. We haven't run the engine yet, so I'm just making sure it has enough oil before firing it up. You don't ever want to start an engine without sufficient oil. You will do incredible damage to it. So let's get everything cleared away. Okay, just started up the engine. We're going to check for leaks underneath. Okay. So there's our oil filter, no drips. And there's our drain plug in the pan, no drips. That's good. So now we can turn off the car and close everything. Okay, so I'm trying to juggle the camera and put these screws in at the same time. So let's put the 3 screws back in the cover. Tighten them up with your wrench. Okay. 1 tight, 2, and 3. All 3 of them are tight. Let's go back up top. So back inside the car with no foot on the brake. I'm going to push that 2 times to get my dashboard lights on, and I'm just going to check something. I want to make sure, I hope you can see that. See if I can focus there. you want to be in odometer mode, not trip odometer. So I'm going to turn off the dash now. And there's a reset button right here in the corner of the dash underneath the tack. So I'm going to hold that down with my finger, and let's see if I can balance the camera here on the steering wheel. And hold that down and hit the start button 2 times with no foot on the pedal. Let that focus there, hopefully you can see that. There was a countdown, I don't know if the camera picked it up. There were some dashed lines that came on, and it counts down real quick, and then you can let go of the button. So I don't think this focus picked it up, but as I was holding down the reset button on the left side of the dash, and then I pressed the start button 2 times with no foot on the brake, then the odometer had some dash lines. They're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the odometer said all zeros, and then it came up with the odometer reading. So that's how you reset the oil warning, you know, the oil change needed message. So now we're set. Okay, so it's time to take the car down. So let's get our chocks out of the back wheel. And let's put our hood down. We don't need to latch it because we're going to check the oil after we get it down. Okay, so we wrote down our mileage, so we know when we last changed our oil and when it's due again. Like I say, I like to do it 3,000 to 5,000 mile intervals, in that range. So let's check our oil now that we're on level ground. We just took the car off the ramps. You want to be on level ground when you check it. Engine should be cool. So that is actually right between the 2 dots. Let's check it one more time. Make sure. I'll leave it in a little bit longer this time. Okay. So that oil is right in the middle. Get some glare on there. Right in the middle of the 2 dots. Right between those 2 dots. That's where you want the oil. So we're good to go. Dipstick is down, cap is on. And as they say, that's job done.